Fathers being criticized by not doing enough by our spouses. This is today's subject, what I'm going to delve into and discuss. Now, when our spouses tell us we're not doing enough, how are they measuring that? Are they measuring the way that they understand that we're not doing enough? Their interpretation? Or is it their standard? We're not meeting up to their standards. And also, how do we know what their standard is if it's not been communicated? And as far as we know, we are doing enough. But it's just different standards, different perspectives. And this is where it gets all messy. Because miscommunication and misperceptions take place. And the other partner, our spouse, may feel violated. We may feel violated as well because we're taking on criticism. We're taking on all forms of emotional abuse. And we're being made and we're being belittled. So what's going on? What's the cause? And what happens to our relationship? How does it get affected? How does it get impacted? How does our emotional well-being get impacted because of the criticism that we're facing by our spouse? Why do they do this? Let's take a deeper look. So when our spouse tells us you're not doing enough, what exactly are they referring to? What are they talking about? Because they may express dissatisfaction, because they may think that we're not involved enough. We're not playing we're not contributing, or we're not playing a significant role in what's happening. So I'll give you an example. It could be just manning the kids. The kids are all over the place, and the wife or your spouse or your partner is trying to communicate to you and say, look, I need help. I got this one is fighting with that one won't do their homework, the other one's running around, I'm telling them to sit down, to eat their food. All sorts of things are kicking off, and your spouse is turning to you to say, look, sort it out. And when they see that you do not do something according to their understanding, they get upset. And as far as you know, you have sorted out because you've separated them, you've calmed down the situation. So how much more do they want you to get involved? And 9 out of 10 times, these things don't get communicated properly, clearly. Because there's an assumption that you should know, look, these things are happening in front of you, you should know what to do. You should use your initiative. But that ain't always the case. Because sometimes it can look like, oh, she's dealing with it. If she needed something, then she'll come to me. And even if she does come to you, the communication is not clear. She's coming to you, she's expressing her being stressed out, but she is not telling you exactly what she needs help with specifically. And then you're going over there, you're having a few words here and there. That's it. But it can come across like, is that all that you've done? I've been working my backside off inside the home, and all you do is just sit there on your phone. But your spouse may not realize what kind of day that you had at work. You could be mentally and physically exhausted up here as well. She will not know what kind of stresses that you have been through at work, what kind of challenges, what kind of rude people that you had to deal with, what kind of pressure that you had to deal with in terms of hitting targets at work. Or someone may have made a negative comment towards you and that's upset you, and you're trying to deal with that internally, and you're trying to regulate your feelings and your emotion. And then at the same time that you're coming back home to more demands, they are not going to see that type of stress. And when you don't meet the demands, there's miscommunication and it turns into a row. What do you do? I'm just trying to bring a few things to your attention. Like, so many things kick off when it comes down to raising our children and how to run the household. So who is actually running the household? Is it the missus or is it you? And if it is you, how are you managing the situation? Because you have to also manage her. And part of managing her is also to deal with the backlash, deal with all these resentful comments and these hurtful words that will be thrown at you. And the reason being is because maybe she may not know how to regulate her own feelings and it's coming across, in a negative way. And you're on the receiving end of the backlash. Because the children are running wild. They may not respect the mum. They may not listen to the mum. They may tell her what to do instead of the other way around. It's tiring just screaming and shouting at the children. day in, day out, day by day, week by week, month by month, year by year, it can get pretty damn tiring. And then imagine what kind of person that your spouse will become towards you. Very negative. And you've also got your own personal stresses at work or whatever it is that you're trying to achieve and do. You have to deal with it. You have to compose yourself, and it's hurtful. It's bloody hurtful. But it's part of the test. It's there to toughen you, to toughen us, to build tough skin. But it does take two though. Make the job more easier for each other. And this is where communication comes in. So what can come across is it's an imbalance. Your spouse, our spouses may be looking at it from an angle where I am doing so much around the home. The workload is unequal. And I'm taking on a lot of the pressures. This is how our spouses could see it. Because they're not going to understand our stresses because it's related outside. We are not going to understand their stresses because it's related inside when we are outside. So there's a gap there. How do you understand each other's perspectives? How do you gel and bridge the two together? This is what a lot of issues arise from. It's just a misunderstanding. And we take it so personally. What do we do? Because communication is very unclear. It's sometimes when your spouse is communicating to you, it can be perceived like you know what they mean exactly. But that may not be the case because there's no specificity. You have to be specific. You know, so the way that they could communicate to you is this. I'll give you an example. I'm stressed with the kids. The kids are stressing me out. Okay, that's a statement that your spouse has made. But it's not a clear message to say, I'm stressed out. Can you please help me with X, Y, Z? I need you to take care of the kids and make sure they do their homework, please, and overlook it. Can you see the difference? It's like giving ChatGPT a prompt. I'll give you an example. The more clearer that your prompts are to ChatGPT, the better the quality of the answer. It's the same thing for human beings. We need clear, concise and precise prompts. When we don't get prompts, the results, the answers are just vague. It's wishy-washy. And this is how we have to communicate. The way we communicate to ChatGPT, I'm not trying to say be robotic, no. I'm not trying to say that. I'm trying to say clarity is key. Description, be descriptive when you communicate. Don't generalize things and assume that they know what you mean. Yes, in some things they know what you mean, but even still, you can still get it wrong. Yeah, so there has to be clear-cut clarity. And the way that you get clarity is when someone conveys a message, you relay it back to them to make sure that you understood what they mean, or is it what they said, the way that you perceived it, correct? So it's feedback going back and forward. This is important. Because if we don't do this, then we're going to have a lot of misunderstandings and arguments. And we are going to suffer. Your spouse is going to have the receiving end of you, be on the receiving end of you, and you will be on the receiving end of her, and their children will as well. They'll suffer. So what do we do? There is a lot of emotional strain. You know, it's not very nice being made to feel like as if you've been undermined, unappreciated. And this can also lead to stress, lead to frustration. Can she not see what I'm doing for the family? Can he not see what I'm doing for the family? Why do I have to tell him what to do? He should know what to do already. But that's not the case. It doesn't always work that way. Do you know what to do to your man? Do you know how to speak to the man? Your man? Do you know how to take care of him? Apart from the obvious things, do you know how to initiate? Do you know how to touch base and check in to see if your man is okay? These are all learned things. So why is there an expectation for our spouses to know that we should know what they mean? Because it's also a two-way thing. There's also an expectation that our spouses should know what we mean as well. But that ain't the case. It has to be clearly articulated. Not assume, not expect. And this is where the whole thing gets really messy, you know. And the thing is, your spouse can make you really doubt your fatherhood, the quality of father you are. Being made to feel that you're not good enough. Being made to feel that you're stressed and you're frustrated because of the fact that you're just getting ridiculed. It's not a nice feeling. But there are misunderstandings. So there will be a lot of tension that will arise. So what do we do? What's the solutions? I've sort of indirectly given you some things to think about. What is that? So we've understood so far from the dynamics of the relationship that both spouses may live together, but they're living in different separate worlds. One is taking care of the home inside, and the other spouse is taking care of the the family, on the outside. He's going out there and working, bringing home the bread, and there's all sorts of stresses coming from the outside. And then she's also, our spouse is also stressed from the kids, from the inside. So how are we going to see and understand each other's perspectives when we are not in that environment? This is where communication comes in. This is what I'm talking about, guys. Fathers. So what does communication look like? That means knowing to shut up. Shut up and listen. Let them speak. Give them the space, the time of day to speak. And do not listen and then speak on the pretense of, okay, I've understood what you're saying and I'm going to retaliate with my own questions, my own answers. That doesn't mean you've understood. When you shut up, when you be quiet, it means putting your ego to the side, putting what you have to say to the side for now, and listen, understand, sympathize and empathize where they are coming from. This is what I'm saying. And then they may give you a turn, because they are watching how you communicate. If you're snappy, if you're reactionary, how are you going to get through to that person? They're going to disregard you. And the same thing is if your spouse is reactionary and they're snappy, it makes you not want to feel like talking to them, doesn't it? So this is what I'm saying. You have to learn to shut up, learn to understand, learn to listen and acknowledge where they're coming from. And vice versa. It's a two-way thing. You have to give each other the time, the day and the respect, because if you don't, you know what, it's not going to happen. And yes, it's hard. I'm not saying it's an easy thing to do, because there'll be triggers. There may be in that conversation, you may try to have a good intention to start the conversation, and there's a word that you'll say that will trigger her off, or she may trigger you off. It's very sensitive, but you have to be really sensible by training yourself to not speak, to listen more. Talk less, react less. Restrain yourself. Calmness is about restraining yourself. This is what I'm talking about. So the other thing as well is we do not express enough appreciation for each other, because through appreciation, we acknowledge the efforts that our spouse are putting in. When was the last time that you said thank you? When was the last time that your spouse said thank you to you? When was the last time that she made you feel appreciated? And when was the last time that you made her feel appreciated? Think about it. And the thing is this, it can be challenging. It is very, very challenging. When it comes down to managing household responsibilities, it's about sitting together. You have to sit together and really plan, analyze, assess where the relationship is going, what the relationship needs to run the household smoothly as well. When it comes down to chores and responsibilities and roles, who's doing what, touch base from time to time. I've spoken to about this specific area in so many of my previous videos. It's about touching base from time to time. You know, it's about appreciating each other's efforts, acknowledging each other, because through appreciation, like I said before, you acknowledge each other's efforts. It has to be a trained, conditioned response. Try to be more sympathetic and understanding. Empathize. Whatever happens, avoid blaming. And that's a hard thing to do. Oh, it's your fault that you done this, but you done this. And it's just a vicious cycle going back and forth, back and forth. You're not going to get anywhere with that. You have to refrain yourself from saying these types of things, because it will help to strengthen the relationship. Avoid blaming and shaming each other. Period.